a little bit late on this topic of the video. Sutton is literally going to be 9 months old in 15 days, and it'll be exactly 40 weeks in 21 days. So I'm a little bit late to the game on this story. Life as a mom is crazy. I didn't know if I wanted to tell this story. I went back and forth on it, and that's why it has kind of taken me a long time to tell it. It didn't go as planned, and so I think there is a little bit of like sadness there. Not like bad, but it's just like kind of a thing. You know what I feel? But yeah, I just wanted to like hang out, be in my house, super chill, and we'll just like have some girl talk. We'll just have it super laid back, and just talk about labor and delivery and everything that went on that day. We were literally going to be talking about from the second that I woke up, the day that I went in labor. Well, maybe not, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but like midday all the way until he came. And we're just gonna talk about it. This isn't to scare anybody, anything like that. It's just my experience. Everyone's different. My next baby could be a million times different. All of that. So this is just girl talk. I want it as chill as possible. I don't know if you guys know who Brittany and Baby is, but she used to have this thing. It was called Brit's Brew, I think. And she talked about like serious topics, and she was just super chill in her house, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to go for in this. Obviously not take her idea, but just super chill. We're having some girl talk. It's gonna be a little bit TMI, and we're gonna talk about it anyway. So let's just hop right into the video. Alrighty, so if I'm a little off in where I was just a minute ago, it's because the battery died and Sutton woke up. So if you hear any like little bit of jiggling, it's because he's in his bouncer right here. So let's start in the beginning. We're gonna take it all the way back. I feel like my labor story starts a little bit earlier in the day, even though I wasn't fully in labor, but I'll tell you in just a second. So on the 14th of August, his due date was the 16th. On the 14th of August, we had an appointment with our OB, and we went in, and she was like, okay, I'm not letting you go past the 21st. So whatever is that? That's 5 days after my due date. She's like, I won't let you go past it. I don't know if he was measuring big. I didn't even think to ask. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm having him soon. And so she's like, I'm not letting you go past. You guys need to pick an induction date. So I was like, okay, well, let's pick his due date. Like, that's fun. And mind you, his due date was on a Friday, so it was gonna be perfect because even if we had him on a Friday or a Saturday, everyone would be not missing work to meet him. It would have just been perfect. It was perfect timing. And so I was like, let's do Friday. She said, we don't have any openings. The earliest we have is Sunday. And I was like, well, that's kind of a bummer because yes, people would be there, but my mom had all 24-hour labor, so I was kind of expecting him to come the next day. Not knowing for sure, obviously, but that's just kind of what I had told myself in my head, was like, you're probably gonna have a 24-hour labor as well, and you need to get prepared for that. And so I was like, okay, I mean, obviously Sunday's not perfect, but it's better than, I think the 21st, what is that, a Wednesday? I think. And so I was like, it's better than a Wednesday, let's just do Sunday. Maybe I'll have a fast labor, I mean, I don't know. And I was like, let's just do Sunday. At least Dylan would be there and not have to worry about working. So we scheduled him for the 18th, which is the Sunday, and it's at 7 a.m. I think is when they induce you. And so we have it scheduled. We leave the office. Mind you, she'd been checking me since I was 35 or 36 weeks pregnant, and I was dilated to a 3 and 100% effaced. So I was getting there. The first time she checked me, I was like 1 in 50, and then I was like 1.5 in 50, and then it was like 3 in 100. And so, but he was still at a positive 2. Positive 2, is that what you wanted to be at, or negative 2? The highest station he could be at, he was at. And so we left the office. Our appointment was about at like 3:30-ish, and we left the appointment, went home, again, not feeling any signs of labor at all. And we go home, and Dylan and I had been walking every single night since like 37 weeks. It felt really good. It felt good to like just be up and stuff. I felt that if I was like sitting still is when I like felt like crap for being pregnant. And so Yeah, we walked every night, and that night we took a 2.5-mile walk. Like, that was our biggest one. We just kept going, and we came home, we ate some food, we had steak and potatoes, and I do remember that because it was pretty like hefty on my belly. And did some other stuff for like labor, and we went to bed. We went to bed kind of early that night, about like 8:30-ish, and I had been cramping, but I had been cramping since 36 weeks, like where I would cramp super hard and you could, like, no joke, see his head and his butt like in my belly. Like, it would cramp so hard or contract so hard, and it was just Braxton Hicks obviously, but so I just thought that that was what it was again. Oh, are you telling me the story from the inside? Do you know how the labor went? Is it traumatizing? Oh, next week we'll do a Sutton labor story. How he felt about labor. So I just didn't think anything of it. And by like 9:30, I was like, holy cannoli, these are too close. These are too much. I cannot sleep. So I like had nudged Dylan, because Dylan like passes out like no problem. Sorry, this, I know that's probably really annoying because it's right there. It's our Mamaru. And he needed to be closer to me, so that's what we're doing. Like I said, he just woke up from a nap, so he's a little bit clingy right after a nap. I'm like, I think I'm in labor, but I feel like I had said that probably 30 times before, okay, no. Let me correct myself. I had said these contractions keep getting worse so many times, but I had never, I praised myself on this part. I had never said, I think I'm in labor, until the second I was in labor. So, but I did say quite a bit, like, holy cow, these contractions are worse than last night's, like, because I did have them all the time. And so, he was just like, he's like, you're fine, like, just try to go to bed. And Dylan and I always laugh about this part in our labor because it was real labor and he kind of blew it off, but not in like a rude way. Like, I really was not offended. I was like, I mean, I honestly believed him when he was saying it. He was like, just go to bed, you're fine. Like, I believed it. So he wasn't being rude, but we always laugh. I'm like, gosh, you just like told me to go back to bed, and I'm like full blown having a baby. And so I go downstairs because I needed to walk it off. I was like, holy cow, I need to walk. So I walk just like around our island right here for no joke 2 hours. So now it's like 11:30, and finally I call my mom and I'm like, I need someone to count these contractions because I just like can't do it by myself. I had an app, but I didn't feel like I was like starting and stopping it like at the right time, and so I call my mom and they're exactly 2 minutes apart. I know they usually start at like 10 minutes apart, but no, they were exactly 2 minutes apart from the beginning. And obviously that freaks me out because I have heard stories of you going from like a 3 to a 7 and like delivering, and I was like, I've never had a baby, like what if that's my case? So I'm like kind of freaking out, and I go back upstairs to Dylan. In between the 2 hours before calling my mom, he's like, just take a bath, and I get in the bath. It was making it worse, so I get back out of the bath. So that's why we laugh, is because like Dylan was like, just fall asleep, just take a bath, and I'm like, I'm having a baby. But at the time when I was like nudging him and stuff, I was like, these are really bad, and he's like, it's okay, just take a bath, I'll sit up with you, and then he'd like fall back asleep. And so I always make fun of him. I'm like, yeah, you were just sleeping over there while I'm having a baby. But it's totally a joke, because like honestly I believed him too. I was like, this isn't real, like this is not happening yet. I have an induction date for Sunday, like I'm not having a baby. And mind you, it's the 14th, so I'm like, I'm not even gonna have a baby before like his due date. I know I won't. And so I call my mom. It's exactly 2 minutes apart. Finally, she's like, because she's had 4, so I'm sure she was like thinking, okay, don't go to the hospital yet. But I'm freaking out thinking, holy cow, they're 2 minutes apart. I'm about to have a baby right now, when I'm not about to have this baby in my dang townhouse without a doctor. I was like, okay, you know what, we're going. At like 1:30 in the morning, I finally just like pulled the trigger, and I was like, we're going. Like, I don't care if I'm that lady who goes into triage 20 times because I think that I'm having a baby. I'd rather know that I'm not having one and be sent home. And so we go in, and this is our first time to second time we got sent for a reason at like 37 weeks, but got sent right back home. So this is our first time like actually telling ourselves to go to triage. And we go there, and they check me, and I'm still at 3 centimeters and 100%, but they're like, you're in full-blown labor, like you're in labor, but we cannot admit you until you dilate anything. Like, you should have moved by now for how close your contractions are, everything like that. Like, we don't know why you haven't moved, but because you haven't moved since 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever our appointment was, they were like, we can't admit you. So I'm like, what the heck? Like, when do I know to come back? They're like, you just won't. You're just gonna have to wait it out. And I'm like, okay, no. Like, I know that you guys are the professionals and I trusted them, but I was like, what the heck? Admit me, I'm in labor. And they're like, so I walk around. Again, that was what was making it feel good. Like, I just wanted to like be up and walk this baby out. And so I am up and Dylan and I are just walking around. I had been addicted to ice, so we're just like sitting there with our ice cups at 1 a.m. eating some ice, walking around. Finally, they just keep checking me and they're like about to send me home. They're like, this is our last time we're gonna check you, like 30 more minutes. And I moved half a centimeter and she's like, good enough for me, get in there. And mind you, I was not being like pushy or rude. Like, I was like, if they send me home, they send me home. But they were kind of too like, I don't want to send you home. Like, I just can't admit you. And so I think that's why I was in triage for 4 hours, because I finally got admitted at 5:30. So I was in triage for 4 hours and they just like kept checking me. So I don't think they wanted to send me home either, because they're like, that's weird. Like, you should be moving. Finally, they just admit me at 5:30 because I moved half a centimeter, so I'm at 3.5. Sorry, I keep moving him. I thought I was gonna be able to do this during nap time, and I think I woke him up when I did my intro. Anyway, so my worry with the epidural was that it would wear off, because I feel like you just need to not listen to stories before you have a baby, because I was like worried that it would wear off by the time I needed to deliver. Again, not knowing that like you can bump it up and push that button every 15 minutes and to like bump up the dose and all of those things. I didn't realize that, but I still had heard so many stories of it wearing off, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait as long as I can. Although I was at like the point where I could get my epidural when I got there, but I was like, I'm just gonna wait. And because it wasn't that bad yet. I mean, it was just kind of like a type of a pain, but it wasn't like a holy cow screaming, gripping the side of the bed. I mean, we get there, but it wasn't yet. And so I was like getting into the jacuzzi, sitting there with Dylan and walking back and forth, walking up the hallways, walking in my room. We're going great. And we get to a 5 relatively quickly, I felt. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I don't know why I felt like it was very quick, but I felt like we got to it pretty quick. Around noon is when I finally get my epidural at like 5 centimeters, and again, still 100% effaced. And I was like, okay, that's halfway. I made it halfway, and it was just getting to the point where I was like, okay, this is not comfortable, and I thought that my epidural was gonna like just make it comfortable. I was tired, I wanted to sleep, and so I was like, let's just get it. And so they put my catheter in, gave me my epidural, and broke my water artificially. And Dylan says that's probably like the weirdest sound he's ever heard. He's like, it's literally like a water balloon popping. It's like the weirdest sound. When they gave me my epidural the first time, he had put it in the wrong place, and so he hadn't even really left the room yet. He was like, let's just give it a minute. So when they give you an epidural, it's a sterile procedure. So I had my mom, my dad, one of my younger brothers, and Dylan's mom in the room, and they all had to leave for the sterile procedure. No one but me and Dylan and our nurse were allowed to be in there. They like put the little caps on you. It's like, it is a sterile procedure. They just don't make you leave your room for it. And so they put it in me. Also, that pain is probably like one of the worst pains ever. It is like this bee sting times 2,000. Like, it is a bad pain. And so he puts it in, and I scream. I had no hold back. I thought I was gonna be like this quiet, like cute little labor. No, I was loud, I was moaning, I was screaming, I was all of it. And so he puts it in, and I'm like, ow! And so he's like, okay, let me give it a minute. And he gives it a minute, and I'm like, I can feel it all. Mind you, I'm having back labor. So if you have ever had back labor, you know that it is the worst pain. you will ever experience. It is so much worse. Well, actually, I have nothing to compare it to, but I have heard many stories of people who've had both, and they said the back one is the worst pain ever. It is so much worse than the real one, or like the belly one, and I didn't have a single contraction in my belly. Like, my belly was chilling the whole time. My back was rocking though. It feels like someone is like grabbing your spine and just ripping it like this. Like, I told you we're gonna be real here, and that's what it feels like. So he sits in my room for probably like half an hour. I don't know how long. My time frames, by the way, are gonna probably be so bad because that whole day is like kind of I remember all of it, but it's a blur in a sense of time frames, because like people were like, he was born at 9:49, and I was like, how? I could have told you he was born at 4 in the afternoon. It didn't feel like that long of a day, which is weird, because if you hear the rest of it, you're gonna be like, how did that not feel long? But it didn't feel long. So I don't know how long he was in my room, and he's like, okay, I didn't put it in the right spot. Mind you, I was terrified to get an epidural because I thought I was going to be paralyzed. So many people probably were just like, you're an idiot. That's not the case. But I just was. It was like something with your spine. They're putting it in there. I was like convinced that like that was a thing. And I know that it is on like the warning sheet, but it's just so less likely to happen. So I don't know why I was freaking out like the way I was. So he's like, it's in the wrong spot. So then I wanted to just bawl my eyes out because I'm feeling everything, but then I'm convinced that I'll never be able to walk again. And so he's like, it's not working. He puts a new one in, and it goes, my legs go numb like that. So then I'm freaking out even more because I'm like, holy cow, he put it in wrong. I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life. I'm done. Like, I can't take care of my baby. And I know that's not the case, but it was just, the emotions are high that day. So I'm crying. And he's like, no, you're fine. That means it's working. And I'm like, okay, well, I can feel my contractions still, and I can't feel my legs. And he's like, okay, let's roll you. If you've ever had an epidural, they'll move you sides and stuff to basically move the medicine around. Like, if you're to like lay like this, it's gonna like flow down that way, and this way, it's gonna flow down that way. And so he's like moving me around. I'm feeling all of it. And so they're like, push the button, and it's not unbearable yet. So I'm not even pushing the button, but I'm like, okay, that's weird. I can feel it, you know? And the reason I got the epidural was because, like I said, like, it wasn't unbearable. It was just unfun. It was like, I want to sleep. I'm tired. Let me just see if I can get this so I can take a nap. I'm like moving back and forth, and he's like, well, you need to push your button. And I'm like, okay, well, I pushed it. And so then he's like, okay, 15 minutes, push it again. So I'm just like pushing it as much as I can. I'm like maxing this thing out because they said, they told me to. And I'm feeling it all. Like, I can't feel my legs, but when they would check my cervix, I could feel that. And mind you, I hated getting my cervix checked. Even like on my like 36 week, 37 week, 38 week, hated it. Like, if you, like, Dylan will even tell you, I almost was in tears every single time my doctor checked my cervix. I hated it. It was not fun. And so for her to be checking me and for me to still feel it sucked. Like, I thought that I wouldn't be feeling that anymore. And so again, emotions are high, so I'm like crying every time she would check me. Luckily, I had an amazing nurse. If you guys know, I do work in the NICU at one of our hospitals here, and so I worked with one of the ladies. She floats to mother baby and labor and delivery and all that as well. So I had worked with her before, and luckily enough, she was pregnant as well. So I don't know if she just didn't have as many patients that day, or if it was a slow day, or what was going on, but she was able to actually be in my room for most of my labor, and that's how I wanted it to be. I was like, if you want to go somewhere else, please do, but if you would like to stay in here, please do. And so my guy comes back in, and he's like, okay, let's give you fentanyl. And I think, I'm 99.9% sure they gave it to me through my epidural. If that is wrong, I am so sorry. I think that's how they gave it to me, and I know that they gave me fentanyl. So, they gave me fentanyl, and I don't know if this is supposed to happen, or if I just had some crazy reaction to it, but I was loopy as all get out. I don't know if you all have ever seen those wisdom teeth videos when they're just saying whatever they want, and they're loopy as heck. Maybe that's what fentanyl is. I honestly don't know what fentanyl is. I was like, give it to me. If it's gonna work and I don't feel this terrible pain anymore, great. And mind you, I have not slept since the day before, and this is like 4 o'clock now. I don't remember what I'm dilated to. I'm 90% sure I'm at like a 7. I sat at a 7 for a hot minute. So I'm at like a 7. Haven't slept since the day before, and I'm just in excruciating pain. Every single time that I had a contraction, I would scream, I would moan. I needed to be like up, but I couldn't get there because my legs were gone. So they had put a contraction like monitor thing instead of it being on my belly, so I kept kicking them off and they weren't getting as strong the ones and stuff, so they put it in my uterus. They're huge, they're overlapping, and so Dylan would watch them. He was the most amazing part of my entire delivery. He would watch them, and as they were coming up, he would pick me up to get to the position that I wanted, and he would just hold me and tell me that I was doing okay, as I'm, no joke, screaming. Like, I'm tired, I can feel it all, I'm exhausted, I'm hurting, it's back labor. None of this is fun. I am done. Mind you, my nurse was amazing. My mom was still in the room. My brother and my dad had ended up just sitting in the waiting room because they were like, okay, this is getting too much. So it's just my mom, me, and Dylan, and my nurse in the room all day. They gave me the fentanyl, and mind you, I'm being like really nice and just funny, but my anesthesiologist is still in the room because he's like, what the heck? Like, why is this not working? So he's in there, and I'm like, why did you steal my legs? Like, you took my legs, and that's not cool. Like, you better give me my legs back. And he's like, what, honey, what are you talking about? Your legs are right there. And I'm like, how am I supposed to take care of my baby if you're gonna just take my legs? And he's like, I didn't take your legs. And I'm like, honestly, that's just rude. And he's like, okay. And I said, you don't even know me, and you just go and take my legs? And Dylan always has this joke where he says, yeah, you don't even know how much milk I like in my cereal. And he said that, and I was like, you know how much milk I like in my cereal? And I was like, just enough to raise the cereal. And my anesthesiologist was like, good to know. And I said, well, how much do you like? I need to know. And so, I mean, like, that's just like how gone I was. Every time I was like talking, the whole, like, mind you, every sentence that I just told you, I'd be going in between each word. So it'd be like, hey, why did you take my legs? That's not cool. And I'm like telling everybody in the room that I'm like the funniest person they know, and all of this stuff. I was on one. Even like when my doctor had ended up coming into the facility, because if my OB like works in her own office, and then when you deliver, she comes to the hospital. She was like, after the fact, when I was like at my 3 and 6 week appointments and stuff, she's like, I honestly came onto that floor and they were like, she is so funny. I guess people had like been coming into my room and checking how funny I was. Like, I would talk to anybody and everybody, and I'd say anything and everything that was on my mind. And it was never rude. It was always like funny, but it was just like, she's like, I'm so sad I missed that. Like, I needed to be there for some laughter. Yeah, anyways, I'm on fentanyl, not working. Dylan's getting frustrated because he's obviously being nice, but I just could tell with his like body language, that he was just getting frustrated because it's like, I hadn't slept. You can't eat on an epidural. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm feeling it all. I'm crying, I'm screaming. It's not fun. But worth it. All of it's worth it. And mind you, I had like planned, and Dylan had known this, that I had like planned, I was bringing all my makeup, I was planning for cute pictures. I had shown him all of the pictures that I had like found on Pinterest that I wanted to take to announce that we were in labor, like on Instagram and like everything like that. And I know that that's not a big deal to most people, but when you have it in your plan and you like, I don't have makeup on, I'm sweating, my hair is an absolute mess. I had put on some self-tanner and it had like melted off, so I had like streaks on my arms, like, and Dylan knows that I'm the person where, like, maybe this is vain, but I'm the person that like I can get things done and I am more confident when I am ready. And so he was even like, I feel so bad, like she wanted all of these things, and I understand we have a healthy, happy baby, so it doesn't matter, but it was just one of those things where you wanted it, and it was like, I can't have it. Even if it's as simple as like a onesie that you had meant to order and you didn't get it, and it's the saddest thing ever because you wanted to take one picture in that onesie and you didn't get it. It's sad, it is. And so I was even just sad about that. And so it gets to be dark, so like 8 or 9, I'm gonna say like 8 o'clock, and they're like, you're at a 9.5 and you're not moving, you haven't moved in a hot minute, so we're gonna try to give you a new epidural, which I had been told that you can't get one after 8 centimeters, so I was kind of scared. I was like, I didn't think I could have one. He has a million toys. He only wants the remote. And apparently the swing that he doesn't want to sit in. And so I'm kind of freaking out again because I hated the epidural the other 2 times. I'm like, okay, we'll get another one. And mind you, the fentanyl, the first one, it did work for 30 minutes. I was able to take a 30-minute nap. The fentanyl gave me another 30-minute nap. And then they gave me the third one and it didn't work again. Nothing. And so finally my doctor comes in and she just pulled, like when she went to go check my cervix, they went and they were like, she's at a 9.5 and she won't move. She hasn't moved for like 2 hours. And she's like, she literally just pulled it. She was like, okay, you're at a 10, push. And so they hadn't even put my stirrups at yet or anything. And my doctor was very just no bullcrap kind of a lady. And so she's like, start pushing. And she like walks away to go wash her hands and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like pushing and she's like, no, not like that. So I do like 3 rounds of pushing. And mind you, I'm like bawling because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe very well towards the end of my pregnancy as it was. I think that's everybody, but mine was like to the point where I would have to like sit down or I'd be like blacking out because I wasn't breathing deep enough. Everything like that. So I'm crying. I'm like, I can't breathe, because when you do it, they go like 1, 2, 3, and she'd count to 10 3 times. So she'd be like 10, 1, 2, okay, go again. So when in that 1, 2, I would like unbrace and then I'd have to come back into it. And Dylan and my mom had both sides of my legs and my back. And so I'm crying. I'm like, I can't breathe. Just give me a minute. And she said, do you want this baby out? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, you don't have a minute. You need to push now. And so I'm like pushing. I'm screaming, like bloody murder screaming, because my contractions were lasting a lot longer than those like 30 seconds of pushing. And so I would come out of it to like intense contractions. And so it was really hard because you push, couldn't breathe, come out of it to excruciating pain because the contraction wasn't over. And my doctor is kind of like, again, no bullcrap kind of a lady. And so she's like yelling at me and she's like, you need to keep pushing. And I'm like, but you finished counting. And she said, well, if the contraction's still going, you need to keep going. And I'm like, I can't, I just need a break. And she's like, do you want him out or do you want to go to a C-section? And my one rule was that if he had already crowned, I was not going to a C-section, because there are those horror stories of them pushing him back up and it being like a very terrible thing. And so I don't think working in the NICU honestly helps, because I think I see the worst. And so that's really, really scary. But anyways, and so I was like, yeah, just take me to a C-section. I'm done. And mind you, I felt like I'd been pushing for hours, but when I finish telling you the story, you're gonna be like, yeah, no, you weren't. So I started pushing at 9 o'clock. And my mom's like, that was your one rule, and I'm not letting you cave from that one rule right now. I will not let you do it. And so I'm screaming like prayers. I'm like, please God, watch over me. Please make sure we're safe. I don't think we're safe. I'm like looking at my mom. I'm telling her, I keep like looking up because I'm laying on a bed. So I'm like looking over and I'm like, I'm dying. Please take care of Dylan and the baby. And I'm like looking up to God and I'm like, please watch over them. Like they need the best. Like I'm screaming. Our family was like in the waiting room and they were like, yeah, we can hear you. Also, who the heck idea was it to not make it soundproof in a labor and delivery hall? Like, there was one time we were walking after we had Sutton and then we could hear a lady screaming, and I was like, that was definitely me, and that's kind of sad that people could hear me. But anyways, so I'm pushing and everything. The epidural that they had given me was working halfway. They could tell that it was halfway, but I was still able to tell where my contractions were. They were telling me that if you have an epidural, I shouldn't have been able to tell, like, because when you're supposed to push during a contraction, and so I would be like, okay, contraction, ready guys, 1, 2, and I'd get up to like start being braced. Not that calmly, I would definitely be screaming and crying. They were telling me that like I shouldn't have been able to feel that, but I wasn't able to feel the contraction while I was pushing, and so that's how they knew it was only working halfway. So at least one of them worked half. So I'm pushing, and after the first push, she tells me, she tells me that she can see him. She's like, oh my gosh, he's blonde. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, he's already out. And Dylan's like, yeah, no, I can't even see him. But it's because she was like down there and like pushing and everything. She was putting lavender oil on my area down there to like warm it. It was like really hot water with lavender oil in it. So everything was smelling real good and feeling real good because it was like hot water. And then she was kind of like tugging as I was pushing. And so that's why she could see him so early on the first push. And she's like, you need to be pushing right here. And so she like touched, and I was like clearly not pushing there, because when she touched it I was like, oh yeah, that's not where I was like centralizing, I think is the word. And I push. So I push and Dylan's like, he's right there, I can see his head, like keep going, you're doing great. One of the moments that we laugh about all the time is because I told Dylan that I wanted him to be like super supportive and be like, you're doing great, like help me. And so when he's pushing me, he was like right here talking to me. And after one of them I said, I love you so much, but I can't hear her count, so I really need you to stop talking. He's like, okay. And so he gets like halfway out, and she's like, do you want to, like, when you like are down, he's like halfway out and you can go like under his arms. And she's like, do you want to? And I'm like so frazzled that I'm like, no, get him out, and like literally scream at her. And she's like, okay. Mind you, she'd been yelling at me, so I was real done with her at the moment. And so she pulls him out, lays him on my chest. Oh, let me back up actually. I push him out, and the second his head pops out, like, so he's like right here around his neck, my area, my lady parts are around his neck. She's like, oh my god, stop pushing. So what had happened was his cord had come out around his ear, and when it happens like that, it can be a prolapse cord, and it can kill both mom and baby instantly if it comes out before the baby. And so when it had come out around his ear, that's what she was worried about. So she's like, stop, 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 stop. Are you cutting the cord? She like looked at Dylan. He's like, yeah. And he like gets down there. She's like, here, cut it now. And she's like, you need to be as relaxed as possible. So I'm like, I'm taking it in. I'd been begging for a break, and I was like, oh yeah. Not realizing that nobody was okay or safe. But I'm like, oh, perfect. I'll take a break. Like, perfect. Thank you. Like, take that cord. I'm like, my baby's practically out. And I hadn't really, I mean, I know I've told you guys a couple things about labor and delivery that I was worried about, but I hadn't really researched it because I knew that I'm the person that I'd be so scared. So most of the things that I did know beforehand, it was like an accidental find out from like people's posts or like a video like this or whatever. But I didn't do a ton of research. And so cutting the cord, I just thought his whole body was out. Didn't realize that it was like around his ear. Didn't realize any of that stuff, which I think was honestly a lot better. I think because I was a little bit clueless going into it, that I was like a lot more just level-headed, like, okay, I'll stop pushing, you know, or like, but I don't think that it helped when it came to like her being like, go, go, go. I was like offended almost. I was like, chill out, he'll come when he comes. But I am looking back at it like very grateful for that, because I don't know if I could have gone 3 hours pushing. Like you hear all those stories. And so he cuts it. I think I pushed like 2 more times, and it was like that part where she's like, do you want to pull him out? And I'm like, get him out. And so she like pulls him out. That is the weirdest feeling ever. It kind of feels like when your water breaks and you kind of like deflate. He pulls it out, and you can like feel all of the limbs. I think it's because I didn't have like an epidural that worked. So I'm feeling everything. It was practically a natural labor and delivery. I'm feeling it all, and she pulls him out, and that's like the weirdest feeling. And she puts him on me, and we have like pictures of it, and I'm like screaming still. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he's here, is he okay? Check if he's a boy, check his fingers and toes, like, is he okay? And Dylan's like laughing at me, and so are the nurses, because I'm like all over the place. I think the fentanyl is still there because I wasn't like fully there. When they take him over to do like the weight and everything, he was born at 9:49, by the way, so we'd only pushed for 49 minutes. When they take him away to like weigh him and do head circumference and clean him off the rest of the way and swaddle him really cute and all of the things, we had a healthy baby boy. We had everybody meet him pretty quickly. What was so sad about our experience as well was that I didn't get like that hour or 2 hours of just him laying on my chest. because I had to feed him so quickly, and it was so late at night that I didn't want our families having to wait forever. And so I was like, just bring the families in first. I don't even think Dylan got to hold him before everybody else did, and that's what breaks my heart so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I clearly need to take care of him. If you guys have any other like topics that you're like, let's just have a girl talk and talk about it, please let me know down below. I would love to talk about them. I hope this didn't scare you guys. I hope that you're like, we can laugh about it. I want 20 more babies. I told Dylan I want to be a surrogate because I loved that experience so much. Just that like endorphins that run through your head right after you have a baby is so amazing, and the room and the atmosphere and all of it is so amazing, where I'm like, I could have 10 million more. So I hope that didn't scare you guys. I hope that you guys smiled along with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.